Welcome to A Mess in the Kitchen, the podcast all about demystifying home cooking. I'm Molly Cat, a food and travel writer who loves to cook, but is only so at it. My co-host Dusty Kugler is a former food stylist, caterer, and food fanatic that always makes cooking look effortless and somehow manages to clean up after herself in the process. We talk recipes, cooking, tips and techniques, our favorite kitchen gear, mishaps, and successes. We believe eating good food at home doesn't have to be so complicated, and if you screw up, who cares? That's why God invented frozen pizza. Here's the show. Welcome to another episode of A Mess in the Kitchen with me, Molly Cat, and you,
me, Dusty Kugler. Yippee! We're back.
Woo! We're back. It's season 3, and we're starting things off with our favorite thing.
Butchers.
That's right. Meat shops. I've mentioned this many times, but I've always secretly wanted to be a butcher. So, but I have to say, sometimes when I walk into a meat shop, I get a little overwhelmed. There's like too many choices. I feel like people are like particular about their meat, and I don't know. I just get very overwhelmed, and then I'm like, give me the brats.
Yeah. Well, no, it is overwhelming because there's so much to choose from depending on where you're going.
Right.
So if you
And
go to
it's
a butcher shop,
expensive.
yeah. But there's a reason it's expensive. And that is one thing that we learned from Erik. He's got relationships with people, and it's like good shit. You know where it's coming from.
So anyway, we talked to our favorite friendly neighborhood butcher, Erik Sather from Lowry Hill Meats today on this episode, and I feel like he has a lot of great information. So I guess why don't we roll that beautiful meat footage, except for whatever the sound version is of that.
Audio.
Roll the tape. Welcome, Erik Sather, because we had to clarify earlier, to our podcast. You're I guess head cheese wouldn't be like the right thing to say, but you own you own Lowry Hill Meats, you're everyone's favorite neighborhood butcher in Minneapolis. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yay. We're going to talk all thing meats. We're so excited.
We are so excited. So please tell us. Well, Dusty knows this. My secret dream job is to be a butcher.
Same with my husband, which is so random.
That is so
There you
random.
go.
But how did you end up with my dream job?
I don't know. I think there's layers to it, but I grew up on a hog farm in southern Minnesota. And
Okay, well, that's probably a good start.
It is, but I was young enough more so to be in the way. I wasn't necessarily a helping hand. But then we moved up to the cities in the early 90s. And then after high school, I started cooking again professionally. And then I think from there, I kind of realized the disconnect that I had between the food that you would buy from purveyors or the food that you would just, like the meat that you would already get packaged. And I was like, I know there's more of a story to sourcing this stuff. And then that kind of brought me into, just learning how to break down animals, doing different meat cuts. I started cutting just at like a regular box grocery store. And then Clancy's open in Linden Hills. So I started working there, and that was where the whole animals came into place. And so I think a lot of it, I was able to kind of bridge that gap of butchering animals, meeting farmers, knowing farmers, learning more about the mechanics of food as far as just breaking down animals and using all the parts and then bringing that into kitchens. But as I cooked more and more, I realized that it's really fun to give people the product and kind of send them on their own adventure to learn what they want to cook or do what they want to do. And, I think just as my life changed and becoming a dad and everything, the restaurant late nights aren't always ideal. So
No, I don't know how anybody does it, honestly, with kids. It
it's
seems
pretty
so
amazing.
hard.
There's a lot of people I used to work with that were doing it. Well, I was waitressing still in Chicago with one and one on the way, which is always classy. But it was really, I forgot, like I always say it's the easiest job in the world because I enjoy it so much, but it's a lot. The late nights.
Yeah.
It's like you get into the habit of like, just gonna have a drink. Wait, it's 3 a.m. How did that happen?
It happens fast. But no, it was pretty fun. I left cooking. I left Bar La Grassa, and I was to be the meat manager at the Seward Co-op for a couple of years. And I like that a lot. And, I think that really honed in on more of just like the business side of things. And then I was lucky enough between Underground Meats and Underground Food Collective being interested in coming to Minneapolis. And then kind of all the puzzle pieces came together to bring Lowry Hill Meats together, which was pretty great because we get to cook food and cut meat and talk to customers. And we'll be opening our doors again on Wednesday. So you can come in and look at the
Nice.
meat case too.
All right.
Yay.
So we're
Yeah,
excited
So
about that.
awesome.
I think you have a really great I don't actually know if this is true for many people who are butchers, but you have a great skill set in that you've got a ton of professional kitchen experience and also like the butchering kind of experience too. So I feel like you're it's not just like, oh, you put like salt on this and throw it on your grill or whatever. I feel like you've got lots of great ideas for what to do with meat once you get it home.
Yeah, I think that, and we're lucky here too. Most of the crew here, I'd say all of the crew are really good cooks, and that's, they have interest in the product and they enjoy cooking. So that's really fun. And I feel like customers come into the shop sometimes and they don't know what they want to get, but they know how they want to cook, or there's a lot of layers to questions, but it's usually really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. So I feel like we do have the old world skills of cutting meat, but we kind of have the cook's perspective on, you cut a pork chop a little bit thicker, or, you take that chine bone off so you don't really, there's less to work around, so it'll cut easier. So we've cut a lot of meat the way that we would want it presented on a plate at a restaurant. So I think that's something a little different too.
Yeah. So when did you remind me when you opened Lowry Hill?
October of 2015. So
Okay.
it's just,
Oh,
we're in
wow.
our 6th year, I guess.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Which
Gosh,
is
that went
crazy.
fast.
yeah.
It does.
Yeah, it has gone fast. And with opening this shop, was there a need that you hope to fill that you weren't seeing in the Twin Cities?
I think the biggest motivator for me was shopping for meat is stressful, and sometimes it's really overwhelming, especially if you go to, say you go to a grocery store or a co-op where all the meat is just like wrapped in plastic and it's on a tray.
Yep.
Or the butcher shop's busy and there's nowhere to kind of stand, or you're in the way, anything. And so we really wanted a butcher shop that you could hang out at. So, we built it out with, at the beginning, there was 12 seats, and then now there's 25 seats. We have a sandwich menu, we have beer and wine. We're not doing it right now, but, we host like hog butchery classes and sausage making classes. So there's room for people to come in and hang out. Maybe they're going to get sandwich and ask a couple of things, but all of our cutting tables and everything are right out front also, which is cool for people to see. I think, if I apologize if they see too much sometimes while they're having lunch.
Well,
it's nothing too gory or gross, I don't think. And
you're at a butcher shop. What do you expect?
For sure. Yeah. And you don't have to sit right at the meat counter if you don't want to. But yeah, I think I really wanted a spot where, people could slow down a little bit, ask a few more questions, and just kind of see the process. Because there's really nothing to hide. And I think it's nice to, sort of explain to people that all the parts have to move. So,
I think there's nothing to hide the way you do it. I think there
Right.
could be things to hide in other situations, but
yeah,
you guys really do it right. And I will say, I'm a weirdo when it comes to smells, and your place smells amazing. It does not
that's
smell like
good.
dead animals.
No, it
No, I'm
doesn't.
serious. Like when I grew up, we used to have this chicken place that we would go to, and my mom would get the turkeys and the chickens. Oh my God, it was so nasty. I would remember being like, don't make me go in there. And then to go into your place, which is a butcher shop, a lot of times when I lived in Chicago, the butcher shops, at the end of the day, they're like raking or whatever, moving the blood into the drain. I'm like, oh my God, gross. And it stunk. And
Yeah.
your place smells amazing. It smells like
Yeah.
yummy food. So
Actually, along those lines, could you tell us if there's telltale signs that you're in a good butcher shop versus a bad one?
I think so, for sure. And I think everybody with their normal instincts would grasp those concerns. It is, it's, maybe it is price point. Maybe everything's just extremely cheap and you're like, my goodness, what's going on? But I think a balance where I have to explain stuff to people sometimes, people will be like, well, why is your why is your meat more expensive? Or why is your meat brown? And, for us, like a lot of the meat never sees, like we get a side of beef in and it's been hanging for 2 or 3 weeks. It'll oxidize. You cut it, it still oxidizes. It's all part of the natural process. For me, if you just see like electric pink or red meat, you're just like, what? How much carbon monoxide is in this to keep it red forever? What is the deal? So it's interesting, but yeah, for sure. Like the vibe of the cleanliness, the smell, there's some places where you're like the poultry experience you have, you're just like, this is not
nasty.
okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of up to the butchers to kind of tell the story on where things come from or how organized they seem. And granted, there's days I'm certainly disorganized, so I'm pretty self-conscious, but we even have windows in our walk-in cooler, so you can kind of see whatever you want to.
Wow. Yeah. And
I've never noticed that. That's pretty
Yeah, they're
cool.
by the back door.
So one thing I remember when I first was like actually getting into food, I kind of didn't realize that it's not just like what's available in the case that you can get from a butcher. There's like you can ask for specific things. You can ask for cooking ideas. So what questions do you think, if you feel a little overwhelmed going into a butcher shop, what are some questions you could ask a butcher or services that you might offer that people might not necessarily know?
Maybe I can answer this question in my shoes, being the butcher. Like say you were to come in, you're interested in trying something new, but you don't really know what you want. I would just kind of ask, what are some things that you do enjoy to cook, or if you go out to eat, like what are some cuts? Or, say you're interested, you're like, I want to grill a steak tonight, but I'm not sure what. Questions that I start with, it's like, do you want bone in or boneless? Do you want something lean, something a little fattier, a little more marbling? How many people are you feeding? And then, are you grilling inside or grilling out? Hopefully you're not grilling inside unless you have a nice kitchen. But are you grilling outside or a cast iron skillet? So I just kind of ask, like, I just kind of go from there. Like, what are things that you enjoy? And I think from there, it's interesting where, selling whole animals, sometimes someone will come in and they're like, I want a flank steak. Or like, oh, I just sold it. You're like, how about a skirt steak? They're like, maybe, or a hanger, or you think about like a tri-tip, like what are some similar cuts that you could kind of apply to the same cooking method or interest. But as far as, being intimidated and walking into a meat market, I would ask some questions, be like, this is how I'm interested in cooking something tonight. And these are some things that I normally like, or I'm comfortable cooking with, what would you recommend? And that's probably how I would start.
Yeah, maybe arrive a little open-minded. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't walk in thinking I have to have a filet mignon or
Filet. I was
something.
just gonna say that.
Yeah. There's
we
no
do
other pieces
that
of
all the time,
I bet.
and it's people are like, so what's good? You're like, well, where do you want to start? What do you like? And they're like, you got any filet? You're like, yes. It's like conversation's over, it's,
yeah.
and that's what some people like. I don't hold it against them at all. Yeah, it's worth being comfortable with a certain cooking method. I think that helps out a lot. Like, if you're going to marinate something or smoke something, and just kind of know your comfort zone, and then hopefully we can help you find something too. I think another one that's always interesting too, like especially if you're going to, say, a place where all the meat is on the wall, you'll often just kind of shop by price point. And so you might find like a $7 New York strip, but then when you get home and you take it out of that tray and that plastic, you realize it's like less than a half-inch thick. And then that's a super bummer, because by the time you sear that off, it's really overcooked. So maybe what we recommend is just buying like a thicker steak to share. Like maybe it's 2 or 4 people, you get a steak that's like 1.5 inches thick, and it'll cost more, but it's just one steak, and then you slice it up at the end. And I'm a bigger fan of just like maybe finishing something with like lemon and olive oil or chimichurri, things like that. And get a meat thermometer. We talk people into meat thermometers often, especially if they're getting like a big ribeye. They're like, I have no idea how to cook this. You're like, follow the guide, not the written guide on the thermometer, because everything will be overcooked again. But like meat thermometers don't lie, so that's a pretty convenient way to not overcook something also.
So digital or this one?
We sell
Dusty, this is
digital
a
ones.
podcast. I don't think they
Oh
can see it.
shoot. The oh, the one that
They
has
work.
the
With the
stick
They'll
that
get
dial?
it.
moves.
Yeah, the one with the
The
dial.
dial. That's the word, dial. I
Those
said the
do
stick that
work
moves.
if that's what you have. But
Okay,
I'm a fan of a digital thermometer for sure.
gotcha. Well,
Yeah,
that's
I have
good
a
to know.
thermopen. And that's good advice too, is to not pay attention, not disregard what it comes with. Because okay, so I grew up in a family where everyone was afraid of dying of like salmonella or something. So
Yeah.
if something was supposed to cook for 10 minutes, we better cook it for 20, because otherwise we're all gonna die. But um but you're saying you don't necessarily need to. I mean, I guess
No,
some safety tips might be a good
for sure.
thing to
And
infuse here.
that's a good question too. You could ask us like, what should the internal temperature be? And we'll maybe say cook something to like 115, but then let it carry over for 5 or 10 minutes. Or if it's something bigger, let it carry over longer. But
Does
like on
that
the
mean rest,
thermometer,
like, let it sit down and not do anything?
yep, yeah, like
Sit down.
if it's a cast iron skillet, you just tell it to sit down and it'll stay. Or like you take it out of the pan and like just let it rest on your cutting board. You
Yeah.
could cover it if you want. But yeah, that gives. So when you're searing something, all the muscles tighten up, and you need to like let it cool and rest and relax. So the muscles relax. So when you slice it up, all the juice just doesn't come running out, and you'll end up with a drier steak that way. So that's what I tell people to do pretty often, and that's with anything like roasting a chicken, a turkey, a steak, anything like that. If you want like a juicy steak or a roast, you got to let it rest so it'll retain the juices.
Did you have a question, Dusty?
I have many,
Okay, go
but
for
I'm
it.
just I'm just enjoying this banter here because I'm like really taking it in because as you know, Molly, I'm a terrible griller, but
Uh,
I'm so in. I am.
well, my problem is I'm never, like, confident on the temperature
I
at
just
which.
don't have patience. Doesn't
Okay.
work for me. I'm doing
Mm.
laundry and other things at the same time.
Okay.
Doesn't work. I'm not good at it.
I've found that I have patience, but I don't have time, or I'll get distracted because I have 2 kids. And
Yeah.
so for me, like grilling wise, so if that's the thing, you're like, I don't have time. Like I'm impatient. It's so maybe you want something like a skirt steak or a flank steak, like something you can just sear hot and fast, and
Yeah.
it'll carry over while you're walking inside. Or like the food lab is really cool how they describe like the reverse sear, where you'd slowly warm something up and then you sear it off right at the end, and that's really cool. I'm also impatient or get distracted, so I do the opposite. Like I'll let the steak temper, so I'll let it come to kind of room temperature on my counter. I'll season it, pat it dry, rub it with oil. I'll sear it hot and fast over the coals, so I'll grill it direct till it looks really nice, and then I move it off to the side, and then I let it slowly carry over. So that's on something that's bigger. So
Okay.
that way you can run around a little bit, and it's a little more forgiving. So you're not worried about really overcooking the outside by the time the middle's warmed up. So like a pork chop, you could sear it off really quick and then just move it off to the side. But if you're going to do like a cast iron skillet, I just do like low and slow, like a medium temperature in the skillet, and it'll slowly caramelize and render all that good fat. And
Yum.
but it's easy to do.
You were just saying how you would prepare it. So I'm picturing like just a steak or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
to have it taste the best, so to get the most flavor, how long do you cook it and how long do you let it rest? And so I guess the question is it rare? Is it medium rare? Is it charred on the outside and pink on the inside? Like for the best flavor of your meat.
That's where it gets a little tricky. I'm a medium. So if we're talking about beef, like a steak, I'm a big fan of medium rare on hanger steaks. Kind of that rare, medium rare. You can always cook something more. You can't ever
Yeah.
cook it less.
Yeah.
So you can always kind of bring it there. But as far as like cooking times, every grill is different. Every oven and stovetop is different. So that's back to the thermometer where,
Okay.
But my basic method, are we cooking inside or outside?
Outside.
Outside.
Just how you said it too. I do
Okay.
it, I
So
dry it off, I salt and season it, I oil
Well, I
it,
have a
then I throw
question.
it
So,
on.
are you normally letting things come to room temperature before you grill them?
a little bit, yeah. So you'll see, like, if you cut into a steak that you grill, if I'm doing like something thinner, like a skirt steak or a flank steak, I'll let that be cold and I'll sear it off, because if I sear it for too long, it'll overcook. But if you're
Mm.
doing something bigger, say we're doing like a bone-in ribeye that's like 1.5 inches thick, that's so thick that that inside will be ice cold by the time the outside is overcooked. So
Yes.
if you, we've all done it for sure, where you're cooking a steak, say it's even like a thicker like sirloin medallion or something. You sear it off, you cook it, and you let it rest for a little bit, and you slice it, and then you see this really like gross brown ring, and
Mhm.
then you see kind of the pink in the middle. It's because that inside is still cold while the outside is overcooked. So if you let it temper, that inside will be warming up sooner while the
Oh, sure.
outside is searing,
I
if
don't know
that
why I
makes
never
sense.
thought of that. It
Me
And
totally
that's
neither.
makes
where
That's
sense.
a really good tip.
like the reverse sear thing is really cool too. So like if your oven goes down to like 200 degrees, say it's a bigger steak, like say you're doing like a bistecca or something like a 2.5 inch thick T-bone, and you're having like 6 people over or something, you can put it in that oven, let it slowly warm up to like an internal temperature of like 100 degrees. So it's still like very rare. And
Sure.
then you would take it to your skillet or to your grill and just sear it off really hot and fast till it looks good. Um, you cook it like another 10 degrees, 10 or 15 degrees, it'll be like 115. And then you just let it rest for 10 minutes and you slice it. But then you'll notice like the whole steak will be pretty, it'll be like a nice crusty sear, and then it'll be kind of pink to red. Like you won't see much of that brown in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That is a really good tip.
Yeah.
Do you dry things off pretty well before you cook it
I
too?
do, and especially like if it's something thicker, I'll salt it ahead of time, but
Mhm.
then that will draw out some of the moisture. So you pat that dry, you pat it all dry, rub it in oil. That way you'll get a nice sear. Because
Ooh.
if you salt something and then it just kind of sweats and you go to sear it, all that water is going to have to evaporate before
Oh,
you get
yeah.
any
And,
color.
like,
So,
steams.
mm-hmm,
I
yeah,
don't want that.
I did. Speaking of
Steamed
kids,
steak.
it was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I started my Weber grill, and then we went and played downstairs, and I came back up and I added more coals, and then we went to the front sidewalk and played, and then we came back and I added more coals, and I was like, I'm so hungry. So I just started cooking, and we had a bunch of steamed sliders. I was frustrated. I didn't even I put my skillet on the grill, but like I still didn't even give my skillet time to warm up. I was just like, I'm
Well,
gonna faint if I don't eat soon.
We
But
have
that's
more in
so
relatable, though.
common than you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
yeah. But I think these are real problems, and I've
Yeah.
certainly had to adjust like my cooking skill set based on having kids. It's really interesting because like running kitchens for so long, you're just like, do this, do that, do this, do that. And then you yell at someone if they have any questions, or,
Right.
you just show them how to do it. And then that's that. But like,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
all about efficiency there. And then you have kids and
once your
you're like,
mom calls you and she's like, how do I roast this chicken I just bought? And you're like, okay. You're like, salt and pepper, olive oil, 350, hour and a half. She's like, that's it. I'm like, yep, that's fine. There's layers to it. But once you tell someone, you're like, just let it temper for a half hour, season it, do a reverse sear on it, let it rest for 10 minutes, and you're good to go. They're like, how hot is the grill? What's the internal temperature?
Yeah.
What kind of salt? How much salt? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
You're like, "I'd rather
there's,
help you set up your smartphone
there's a
than,
few
like,
more steps here.
your torture."
Yeah.
We're gonna take a quick break and be right back with Erik Sather. And we're back. I think we have time for one last question, but it's about, people are really concerned about like the ethical and environmental impact of eating meat. So,
Yeah.
as a butcher, what are some of your thoughts on that?
I have moods, I guess. But I think if it was, well, one, I think like, commodity beef or CAFOs, all that stuff is absolutely terrible. And it's so gross on so many levels where, I mean, not to pinpoint Nebraska, but I've driven through Nebraska like in the springtime where it just smells like
Mhm.
feedlots. Like It's unbelievably gross. So I think like to talk about like the ozone layer and all the different gases and all that stuff, like if you have animals actually like out on pasture and grazing and they're kind of embraced by their habitat and their ecosystem, that has less of an impact. If you have concerns on top of that, like I don't always think it's logical that beef takes 3 years to grow. That's a lot of feed. That's a lot of water. That's a lot of grass. That's a lot of pasture. So I have people that have concerns that way, and I balance on that sometimes too. I'm just like, geez, this beef is a lot of work and it's super expensive. I feel really bad for the farmers where even during COVID, and we're really addressing some pricing issues now where, supplemental feed, especially like clean feed, is really going up. Gas prices, transportation, labor, everything, like
Shipping.
it's really going through the roof. I even saw some article about Costco, like some of their meat prices have gone up over 30%. And it's true. It's scary. So I think beef is one that I absolutely love, but that one's hard to rely on just if you have some issues with just environmental issues. But, things that grow quicker or they're hardier grazers, like there's different animals, different beef that are hardier grazers, but like lamb and goat and poultry are very hardy. They grow a lot faster. Pork also, more of the heritage breeds that are pastured and hardy grazers I'm very comfortable with. Or, you could go the route of like bison or elk, stuff like that. So there's
And like
options
you
for
could
sure.
get stuff like that. I mean, maybe you wouldn't always have it in your shop, but that's something that you're able to get on occasion.
Yeah. We've been getting more, right now it's just like ground bison and ground elk, but as far as like poultry, lamb, goat, pork for sure, those are things that we like to rely on and we try to get into the shop more, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think other things that people have issues with too, you don't necessarily need to eat like the American way, sort of,
Right.
not everybody
Right.
needs a 12-ounce pork chop. Not everybody needs like a 1 pound New York. Like I do sell those, and I'm not going to point my finger at you if you're like, I just want a big T-bone tonight. It's like, absolutely. But lots of times, like I'll use my family as an example. My wife and I will split like a portion of a hanger steak that's maybe like 12 ounces, or, even if we do cook like a whole tri-tip, we'll eat a portion of it that night and then we'll slice up the next thin for like a lob salad or for a rice bowl, something like that. You don't necessarily need to have that like 8 to 16 ounce portion per meal. You can share something if it's a cut, or if you can integrate like some salami or some pancetta or bacon like into a dish, or you could make a vegetarian dish and integrate chicken broth in there instead of just water or vegetable broth. So those are some options too. And I think that's a way to make the whole animal work. Like I think a whole chicken is kind of a perfect animal or a perfect meal for a whole week. I love it so much. Like you eat some of it one night, you have tacos one night, you make broth, you have soup one night, you have some chicken for some sandwiches later on. The options are pretty endless for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like this is a really big selling point for going to a smaller, local reputable meat shop is, you can ask those questions, ask how you can make something stretch a little farther, or ask about how to make something you're a little less familiar with, like goat. Have I ever made goat at home? Probably not, but I
No.
would. I would.
Yeah, it's great. And things to think about too, like price point. Say you're comfortable cooking boneless, skinless chicken breasts. They're lean. They're always kind of dry. They're a little overcooked. You like them because that's what you think you're supposed to like, which is true. Like, you have to veer off course to be like, I want something fattier. But like, go home and roast a whole chicken. Give yourself a little bit more time. It's delicious, and you'll notice like you can kind of like force yourself to like learn how to use all this stuff. And then at the end of the day, you realize that you paid like $5 or $6 a pound for a whole chicken instead of 10 or 12 pounds, $10 or $12 a pound for a dry piece of meat. That's because, that's back to us trying to, well, one, we need to cover the cost of the whole animal. We need to cover the cost of the labor of breaking it down. But,
Sure.
There's days where you watch all the leg quarters pile up and all the breasts go away. You're like, if you just buy, like when COVID hit and it just got crazy, we decided we could only sell whole birds. And it was like, we're happy to quarter them for you, spatchcock them, break them down however you want. But it's like, you need to buy the whole bird, because if 20 people buy
Yeah.
Right.
2 airline breasts, all of a sudden I have 40 leg quarters and I have 40 carcasses. And it's like, this is all really good, but not everybody wants it all the time. So I think one of the biggest steps that you could do to be conscious and both, well, across the board, like ethically, environmentally, and cost conscious is, maybe buy the whole chicken or maybe buy a one-off cut. Don't always go for those key, like the tenderloin fillet or
Yeah.
the boneless, skinless chicken breasts or the pork tenderloin, stuff like that. Kind of see what else is out there.
And I love that I think this is important too. You said you will quarter it. You will spatchcock it. So that is, I feel like, something that people might not know you can ask for at a
Yep.
meat shop or at a butcher counter. You can have those things done if you don't really feel like doing it yourself, which I've tried
Yeah,
breaking down a chicken myself. Ugh. It helps if you got the right equipment.
it does. It helps if you have space. You don't need much, but
No.
a little bit of practice really helps. But
Yes.
yeah, that's our job. That's what we do. It's
Yeah.
Well, and also it feels good for somebody who doesn't buy a ton of meat. It feels good to go to a place like yours where you feel confident because you have relationships with the farmers of where
yeah,
it's coming from. And as you said, you
Mhm.
don't have to buy a bunch, and it is going to be a little more expensive, but you're getting like that, dare I say, feel good meat
yeah.
because you know where it's coming
I
from.
like
Do you know what
that
I
I
mean?
love it.
Unlike, you use that tray in the plastic, it's like, where does that come from? I mean, at least we
for
know, like,
sure.
oh,
Where does
it's
it come
from
from?
Farmer John down the road, and
Hmm.
he does heritage pork, and I just think that's something that you just can't not pay
Yeah.
attention to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One thing I was, how you're saying, you're like, I'm not comfortable breaking down a chicken or something. Like, every shop is different, and I think one benefit as well of ours, we have just that glass sneeze guard right by the meat case. So if you're like, could I order a whole chicken? Yep. Could you quarter it for me? You bet. Could I watch you do it? Could you show me how it's done so I can do it next time? Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and that's it. So that's us helping you a little bit, but that's helping us so much. it's it's pretty amazing how helpful that stuff is. And then you know how to use a whole chicken, and then probably by the time we make it to the register, we'll talk about 3 or 4 different ways to do something with all of it.
That's cool.
Mhm. Where can we find you? Well, I mean, aside from obviously your shop, but online and all that good stuff.
Just Lowry Hill Meats, LowryHillMeats.com. We're on Hennepin and Franklin.
Yes.
We're closed Mondays.
Best sandwiches, I will tell you. Like,
Oh yeah.
I'm picky, and I don't mean I'll eat anything, but awesome sandwiches. And that's
Awesome.
tough to do.
I think they're
It's
simple enough.
Mhm.
That's
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 why
why
they're
I like
amazing.
them.
That's why they're amazing, because that radish one, oh my god.
Yep.
It's
You got
so
to add ham
simple. It's
next
like,
time.
why didn't anybody think of that before? And it's killer bread.
Julia Child thought of it.
So
I
that's true.
stole it.
So
Yeah.
much flavor though. Well, it's so much flavor, and you get so many of these shitty sandwiches that you're just like, "Ugh, sandwich."
Yeah.
Oh my god, I eat until we get sandwiches at the office from there, I'm like, "Oh, I need a bite of everybody's."
Yeah.
And
That's
she'll
good.
do
Well,
it.
you can get a whole platter next time. It'll work out
So
good.
good. Sounds like
So
a plan. Sounds like a plan.
cool.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
I hope
Thanks,
to see
Eric.
you soon and stock up.
We'll be around.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
I know. Who knew that a butcher had so many services? Like, how much did we learn from him? It was
Yeah,
great.
so much. I wonder if he would massage the chicken if you asked him to.
Okay. I think that's very personal. Just kidding.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh,
Is that a thing?
no.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean,
Forget
maybe.
it.
I don't know. It's not a thing for me, but
Shoot. We'll have to ask him. We'll have to
yeah,
ask him. We'll
we
follow up.
will.
We'll be back with that.
Well, big thanks to Eric for joining us. Should we hop into some listener questions?
Let's do it.
All right. We got one from Nicole. wondering what our favorite must-buy things from Costco are, and because I feel like both of us could probably
Oh, so
name
many.
100 things, but why
Yeah.
don't we just name, like, 3?
Well, this is difficult because I gotta think about it. I don't go there that often, but when I
I don't
go,
either.
I, like, bring back the mother load.
Me too. I go, like, maybe every other month, maybe?
Yeah, I'm kind of the well, no. I actually think I'm probably once a month, and that's just because the fruit there. So I'm gonna go with my number 1 is the fruit
Mhm.
because I think like berries, that's what I mean. Like, I
Yeah,
always can get a good pineapple. The berries, whether it's just strawberries one time or one blueberries one time or whatever, I can always leave with, like, 1 or 2 of those, and they're good, they're ripe, and they
yeah.
don't go crappy in a day. So I'm gonna say that's my number 1. Fruit.
Isn't it crazy how dependably good the fruit is?
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't either. Like, are they saving the good stuff for Costco?
Maybe? I mean, they do buy, like, pallet upon pallet, I'm guessing. I mean, I don't really know the Costco business model, but I'm guessing they just buy a ton. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I will say there is one type of fruit there. Let's see if you can guess what I'm talking about. There's one type of fruit there that kind of makes me sick, and every single time I see somebody that buys this particular thing, it's never good. And
Oh.
this is anywhere, not just Costco, but Costco's
Oh.
is pretty shitty. But it's anywhere. It is the
Um,
container of multiple fruits in the thing,
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Like, what are those grapes?
Are they having maybe it's for, like, a grad party?
Yeah, those kinds of things. You know, it's got,
Yeah,
like, the circle in the middle, and then it's, like,
yeah.
some grapes and some apples
Pineapple
and some
the
pineapple, and it's always
cantaloupe.
honeydew and cantaloupe. And
Yeah,
there's really only one time of year, or maybe even, like, 4 days in the year that honeydew is good.
I agree.
And when
Okay,
it is good.
so good. One of my things that I will go to Costco specifically for is, have you ever had the yellow kiwis?
Yes, I love them.
Yes, they're so
They're
good.
like sugar balls.
I
What
know.
is that? They're
I
so
don't
good.
know.
So how do
They're
you eat
really
them?
good.
How do you eat
Uh,
them?
oh, cut them in half and then
Okay.
scoop them out with a spoon.
Me too.
Yeah, because you can't get the
No, like an
skin
egg.
off. What?
You
Yeah,
can, but it's
but
really tedious. It's not fun.
no, and
But
it's
I
more
love
fun.
to cut them in half, put them on one of those little IKEA plates, and
Yes,
then scoop it out.
yeah, it's where it comes in its own bowl. Why would you fight that?
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, so is that one of yours?
Yes, that's one of mine. Another one, I know this is one of yours too. The Cape Cod potato chips.
Reduced fat?
Yes, reduced
Yeah.
fat potato
I mean,
chips.
they're not reduced fat. There's no way they are. I mean, they still have a ton of fat, but they're so damn crunchy. I love them.
Yep, that's a top one for me. And also another thing that I always get at Costco is olive oil.
Oh, I think I do that. I definitely buy it there. Sometimes I buy it at different grocery stores, just depending on. I don't know. I think my mom used to buy the big one, all the
Yes.
time, and I just didn't want that much of it.
Oh,
So
see, I think the quality's pretty good, and I do like the size of it. Makes me feel like a real cook.
yeah, I totally get that. I like the other thing that I buy there. I'm not sure I would say it's my favorite. It's not my top 3, but I do always buy non-fat Greek yogurt there because it's like as big as a house,
Yeah,
and it's
but you
like
gotta find
$3.
space for that.
Yeah, my fridge is I know, you have a lot more food probably because you have more people who'd eat different things, like little
Yeah.
kitties like different varieties a lot, so I don't have that as much here, so I always buy that there. I'm a really big fan, like, really big fan of the dark chocolate sea salt caramels.
Oh, I don't know about those. I
So
feel like
good.
I can't have a thing that big of, like, sugary treats or I'll just mow it all.
Yep, that's what I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm always like, "I'm just gonna have 1 a night, it's only 70 calories." Well, I'm pretty sure it's more than 70 calories,
Well,
but
who cares?
whatever. Yeah, I don't really care. But, top 3, top 3, top 3. So
I
one
think
there's 1, there's
you, like,
2.
hit 3, but if you have another one you need to give a shout out to, I'm all for it. Can I tell you the best thing you could do?
Cheese, I know what it is.
What?
Cheese.
Cheese. Oh, yeah, they got good cheese.
It's
My
the, Merlot cheese.
Oh, yes, that is so good. The what is it, the Sartori or
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever it is.
I also have a Costco hack, which is my friend Brett, that you know, works at
Yes.
Costco now, so he's
Yeah.
constantly sending me pictures. Have you tried this yet? Have you tried this yet? It's so good. I feel like we have a Costco mole. Maybe we could have him on the show.
Oh my god, that would be so great. Okay,
Yes.
so like Brett, I have a daughter who's obsessed with the Instagram story of Costco Does It Again.
Oh
She
yeah.
screenshots things and says, "Please buy this," like, all day long. I'm like, "What are you doing that you're sending me pictures of Costco things that I should be buying?"
Well, you'd rather have her sending that than like who knows
True.
what else.
But I will say she sent me this one thing twice, and I can't find it. It is Thin Mint Girl Scout cookie covered almonds, and I cannot find them.
Well, they're kind of regional. I mean, Costco's are regional.
I really want that.
All right. Well, throw it out to the universe. Maybe you can manifest that for your
Yeah,
kid.
well, since we have a phone number, maybe somebody can call and tell me where to get it or just send them to us. Do we have an address too?
Wait, well, no. So, if you have a listener question for us, because we have a new producer, Beth, who's actually not a new producer. She was a producer of my last podcast. Go fork yourself. But now she's here with us, and she set up a freaking phone number so people can call and leave messages and ask us questions. So,
Do I get to listen to them sometimes?
yeah,
Oh,
you could leave one.
I love voicemails. I'm gonna do it.
Oh, that's so old school of you. So the number, you ready? Add it to your smartphone.
I'm gonna add it to mine.
Okay, 612-930-2899, which is also 612-930 buzz.
2899. I love that.
Yes, that's right. You can also find us at, oh, there you go, Dusty. She's showing me her screen. It's in there.
I called it.
At amessinthekitchen.com. On Instagram, we're at a mess in the kitchen, and Facebook, a mess in the kitchen pod. Also, you could email us at a mess in the kitchen pod at gmail.com. But if you could call us, that would probably be the coolest.
Yes, I'd love to hear a voicemail.
Speaking of new things we've got going on, we are doing a cookbook club this season.
Woo!
Yeah. So, what does that mean? We're not really sure yet. But and by we, I mean I picked out a cookbook, and Dusty and I are going to cook a recipe from it every week and talk about it. And we would be super psyched if listeners cooked along with us. So, our very first cookbook club book is The Divine Dish by Alex Snodgrass, which is the best last name. The subtitle is Healthy and Wholesome Weeknight Recipes. So, what I like about these recipes is they're pretty quick. So, it's not like we're going to be cooking for like 8 hours to make some like French shit. Like, that's not my program.
Shoo! I do not wanna do that.
And as Dusty knows, I've been having some health issues with my joints. Whenever I eat or drink too much gluten, I can't bend my fingers. So
Yep,
all of
don't
these
wanna do
recipes are
that.
gluten free, though there are quite a few pasta recipes. So I'm sure, Dusty, if you want to like swap out a chickpea pasta with like your average basic regular pasta, totally cool.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, so that is the book we'll be doing this time. And so, how about this recipe for our first one we're
Okay,
going to try?
lay
It's
it on
called
me.
sheet pan chicken shawarma with lemon tahini drizzle.
Yum, that sounds so good. I would order that out, except for
Right.
the sheet pan part.
Yeah, you'd be like, you just do what you got to do in there. I'll just
What
eat the
page
rest of
is
it.
it on?
So, oh, it's on 183, and we will link to the cookbook. And Alex has a great website, Instagram thing. She knows what's up. She's an influencer.
Oh,
Yeah,
how
But
about
yeah,
that?
so so yeah, if you want to follow along with us, get this cookbook and start cooking.
I'm excited. We
Yeah,
haven't
me
done
too.
2 seasons, we haven't done any cooking. We haven't.
You're right.
I mean, this is called A Mess in the Kitchen, and all we talk about are people's messes in the
Yeah,
kitchen. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
No, it's
Oh my gosh.
I'm
Can
excited.
you hear
We're
my children screaming? Oh,
no.
here they come. Hi. Hi, cutie. So I think that's all we got for today. Thank you everyone for listening, and we hope to, I don't know, catch you next time on A Mess in the Kitchen. Can you hear Clark? Oh, hi. Yeah, your mommy's in the closet.
Oh, hi.
Thank you for listening to A Mess in the Kitchen podcast. We're very impressed that you made it all the way to the end. You can learn more about our show at amessinthekitchen.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. A Mess in the Kitchen is a production of Matriarch Digital Media. Executive producer, Twyla Dang. Produced and edited by the lovely, wonderful Beth K. Gibbs. Production assistant, Mia Register. You can find more great podcasts from Matriarch Digital Media at matriarchdm.com. And until next time, here's to good enough cooking. Cheers.